Hello and welcome to another episode of Face to Face. My name is Godfred Akoto Boafo. My guest today is a banker and a mentor who has played a role in building a small company to become one of Ghana's most significant players in the financial sector. Mr. Ofosuhene, the CEO of Bond Savings and Loans, is our guest on Face to Face. Welcome back to Face to Face, and welcome, Mr. Ofosuhene.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
My introduction perhaps is me being modest on your behalf, but what you have done with your company is incredible. Let's take it from the start. How did it all begin?
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. Bond Savings and Loans started as a finance house way back in 2008, and it came as a possible process of putting together a financial services company that had the ability to change the face of financial services. You know, those days, it was more of a transaction-related arrangement where you need a facility, you need some service, you go to the institution. Once it's done, that's end of story. But we felt that for every single institution, every single company, every single individual, the relationship is more important than anything else. So we wanted to change the face of financial services provision by introducing customer service in a different way, where you look more at the relationship than anything else. And that was when we started in 2008 as a finance house. So as a finance house, all that you needed to do was to look for a process of developing relationships that have the ability to invest funds with you. And then you go through the process of also developing, finding relationships that you can, support.
And for you personally, was it a kind of a risk, considering the fact that perhaps you had a stable job somewhere, you had decided to jump ship and enter a pretty risky space with a company that nobody knew?
Yeah.
What thought processes went into that kind of decision for you?
It was a risk, a big risk, actually. And during that time, there was a giant that had been created in that particular industry. I'm sure you know who we are talking about here. So it wasn't easy at all to take that decision. But my point is that in every single situation, you need to be able to create a niche. And in the beginning, that's what we thought about. Let us create a niche. Let us look at how we can make a difference and not worry too much about that. And like you said, it's true. I was coming from a very controlled, background, a very controlled system, structure, that you don't have to worry too much about the way things operate, because things have been set over years. But then coming to set up a new company right from to scratch and be able to get into the system was a big challenge. But at the time, the decision was to look for the right people, because, Godfred, that makes a lot of difference. And I remember very well that we took a decision that it doesn't matter what it was going to cost us. Let us get the best that we can from the system, put them together as a team, and then be able to move forward. That made a lot of difference. It continues to, because I always say that there are quite a number of people that talk about the achievements of Bond. They sometimes, point at me and say that, oh, you've done so well. But it's not me. A lot of it has come from the kind of people that we put together who have, over the period, been able to bring this company up to this level and continue to monitor and make sure that all the ideals that we have agreed are progressing the way we expect.
Normally, when I speak to people like you, people who have worked in building small companies up, people sit back and say, you don't really tell us the true story, the painful stories at the back. You sell us on the fantastic high points and the glory of it all. How hard was it, really?
It was quite difficult. It was quite difficult because I always tell people that sometimes when you are moving from one job to the other, you have this appreciation of a certain clientele base that you have. That, once I'm moving from this company to the next company, I expect these institutions that have been part of my clientele base to follow me. Usually it doesn't happen like that. You have to go through the process, Godfred, of marketing them again. Because you have changed your color, you have changed the cloak you are wearing, and you need to let the people understand and appreciate the fact that you have the capability in that new environment to satisfy whatever needs that they have. So it was very difficult. It was quite difficult from the beginning. And like I keep saying, there was a giant in the market. It's not easy for you to go and talk to an institution in the middle of your story, then the person makes reference that, oh, I see, I think you are doing exactly the same thing as ABC is doing. Immediately, you realize that you are starting from a point where you have to organize yourself. So if this person or this institution has had issues or is a customer of that company, you have a problem. Because you are getting into a situation where you are going to be marked with whatever yardstick has been created by that company, or you are going to be, asked to, move away because maybe we have had one problem or the other. So the beginning was quite difficult. It was really difficult. But we were resilient. We were also very passionate because we felt that we had a good way of managing it. And we have started developing relationships that bore fruits, that we realized that these are, institutions that are prepared to go along with us. And it gave us a lot of encouragement. Some of those companies, Godfred, interestingly, are still doing business with us till today.
Interesting.
Yes.
You operate in a very volatile sector. Was there a point where you reached a give-up point when you were setting out in all this, where you said, maybe this isn't going to work?
Fortunately, it never happened like that. Fortunately, it didn't. Because like I said from the beginning, we got quite a number of good companies that decided to go along with us, mainly because of the people. Because, Godfrey, when you start a business, the brand is not known. The business is known because there are some other companies that are doing it. Your best bet is the people. Once the people, are the right people, you have people who will be prepared to come do business with you initially only because of the people. Over time, you develop the brand, and then the brand now has the ability to speak, before you have to open your mouth. But in the beginning, it wasn't like that. We really had to be dependent on us, those of us who started this.
Quite some tips you're providing for those of our viewers who are engaged in startup and whatnot, in how to move the business forward. So you went through certain phases, and you are now a savings and loans. At what point did you say, we've outgrown what we started out to do? Perhaps it's time to venture out into this new part of the business.
Yeah. So like I said from the beginning, we started in 2008. And in 2014, a decision was taken to become a savings and loans company. Now, it was born out of the fact that quite a number of the companies that we were dealing with had the discomfort of part of their business being handled by other institutions. Because, a finance house doesn't have the ability to provide over-the-counter services. So you don't have a current account. You don't have any of those things that go with banking, services. But then we felt we had been able to put together quite a number of institutions that were doing very well. And it was time for us to go into the business of banking, not a bank, but banking, to be able to provide over-the-counter. And that was done in 2014. And so far, it has been quite interesting.
When you say interesting, what do you mean? Because outside, we'll get to that part of the conversation, outside of what has happened in the sector that you're engaged in, but what is of interest there as a business?
As I said earlier on, it was part of the process of being able to satisfy the needs of our company or the customers that we're dealing with. So once you have that, now you have a whole host of services that you can offer, to the companies. And it made it possible for us to do some of the things that we were not able to do as a finance house. So it created a new, picture. And that is what, for some of the companies, we used, to get them to continue to do business with us. And that is why I say it is interesting, because we saw a new beginning. It gave us the ability to do things that we were not able to do as a finance house. And so far, it hasn't been too bad. It hasn't been bad at all.
Explain to me what the dynamic is, because you look at some of the numbers, and Ghanaians love their savings and loans. What is it about a savings and loans as a sector or an industry that has made it so appealing to so many Ghanaians?
I think the main issue is the fact that we are able to get closer to a certain segment of the market. I am a banker. I've been in it for over 30 years now. And I always say that it is not very easy for some people to walk into a bank, to ask for an account to be opened. The entire environment sometimes intimidates some of the people, and they feel that that sector is not for, us, in terms of the kind of business we do, in terms of who we are. So if you are a savings and loans company, the understanding is that, one, you are small, two, you are operating at a certain level. You are dealing with a certain segment of the market that the big banks, do not want to, get into. So you have a better, appeal from that segment of the market. So that is why, for most of these ones, it was like that you can get, as close as possible. Doesn't matter how low, and that's what we have done, over the period.
And it looks like that the explanation you give is perhaps what attracted so many in there, and led to parts of what we saw in the financial sector cleanup.
Yeah.
From where you sat, what were your observations about the happenings in there? Had you predicted something like this was going to happen?
Honestly speaking, we did not predict that something like that was going to happen. But over time, we realized that the space had become a bit crowded. And quite a number of the companies were not doing what was expected. Because, banking has rules. I say it all the time. Like the law of gravity. Banking has rules that you can't change the rules. And if you try and go around the rules, the consequences usually are a problem. Now, in a situation where you find too many players in the market, some of them sometimes try to change the rules, or they try to do things that are outside the spectrum of the license that they are given, and you end up, having all kinds of issues. And that is what, happened in quite a number of the situations that you are referring to.
And in looking at the response, has it been adequate?
Yes, I think so. I think the response has been quite adequate. And I think that after, this cleanup had been done, quite a number of the companies that are operating right now do not have any problems at all. There's clear indication of a certain level of stability. Mm-hmm. But we're still dealing with the issue of, increasing and enhancing the confidence and comfort of the investing public.
Which is going to be my next question.
Yeah, that is where the issue is. It takes time. It takes time. Once you go through the process of puncturing people's, trust, mm-hmm. and people's, comfort, it takes some time for you to get it back to where it is supposed to be. But I think that there are processes, programs that are in place that are being, churned out, and very soon we should see, an improvement in the level of confidence that the investing public has in this industry. I think that the industry has a good future. Mm-hmm. I think the industry has a very good status as far as the economy of the country is concerned. I think that the industry has an important role to play as far as all of us are concerned. And there's a need for us all to have the confidence to do business with the savings and loan sector.
I get a lot of messages on a daily basis that says, oh, well, the issues of the financial sector were the doing of poor management and whatnot. But there are those who also say, well, Ghanaians, we don't like paying back loans. Is that a big problem you face?
I think it is not so much of Ghanaians who don't like paying back loans. When it comes to loans, there are all kinds of parameters, there are all kinds of things that need to be considered in the process of managing loans. There are situations where people do not even understand what it takes to go through the process of satisfying what the requirements are. And sometimes, too, a lot of the companies do not appreciate clearly exactly what they need. They just feel that I want to expand the business. The only way to do it is to go for a loan. But it may be that the loan that you require is a loan that must travel a period of, let's say, 3 years. Unfortunately, like I say all the time, in this country, you don't have the benefit of agencies that give you information that will lead to you being able to do assessments that are not based on just information that is coming to you directly from the company. Mm-hmm. So you are in a certain deficient position because you have to utilize only the information that is coming from the. So if the company is not giving you the right information, whatever you do will lead to a certain point. And in that sort of situation, sometimes you have the discomfort of loans going bad right from the beginning. Mm. And then also, there are situations where in this country, we do what I call collateral lending. That people come to you, and the first statement is that I have this property, I need a loan. Which means that I am not talking about cash flow, I'm talking about the collateral, that is the property. Now, when you start from that level, what is going to happen is that you will be doing collateral lending and not cash flow lending. And usually, you could run into problems. Because whatever it is, what will pay back comes from cash flow, not from the property. And if you don't consider that as the last thing that you will use to establish whether you want to do the business or not, but you start from there, you're most likely going to run into problems. We do not fix a lot of attention on cash flow. And I always say that the closer you can get to the cash flow, the quicker it will be for you to have your loan repaid. Of course, the collateral is important, it's necessary, because if the unexpected happens, you must have a fallback position. But that shouldn't be the starting point. The other thing I would like to say is that it's always good for people to start with the end in mind. If you come asking for a loan, we need to be able to get to the end before we come to the point of starting. What do you intend to do? What are your expectations? By the time we get through this and get to a certain point where the loan has traveled, let's say even a year, what do you expect to see? Sometimes those questions can bring out things that may not have been considered. In the process, what you do is that you step back and start assisting the company in putting things together in a certain way before we now say that, okay, now I think you are ready for us to go through a certain process. Sometimes, Godfred, the interesting thing is that whilst you're going through that, the customer will say that, oh, this particular company is wasting my time. And then we'll go to a second, a third, or a fourth who may not go through that and will decide that, well, there's good collateral, we need to book a loan. We're also trying to build our asset base, so let us go ahead and then, book it. And then you have such problems coming up.
You sound like a different kind of savings and loans then. If you go through all this, it means it's not just about the margins for the business that you operate. You describe a company that is really interested in the well-being of the customer, which is quite interesting.
Yes. Remember I said from the beginning that we decided to get into relationship banking, right from the beginning. And to do that, you can only be part of the process of whatever the company is doing. When you get to know the company better, it's always easier to determine. In fact, we even started looking at being able to anticipate what companies that we are dealing with will be looking for. For instance, we're in 2020. You may start anticipating that, looking at what this company wants to do, it wants to expand in a particular direction. So it may need a certain facility, asset finance, working capital support in 2021, and start planning towards it. And look at how you can manage it so that it doesn't go, away from wherever you want it to be. That is how we have been able to build this level of clientele over the place.
You are vice president of the Savings and Loans Companies Association.
Right.
I hope this is a message you've been passing on to your members.
Yes. It's something that we talk about. And we are actually at the point where the association is becoming stronger in terms of the way its members, consider it. Some time ago, the association didn't have this level of strength. But over the period, because of the kind of people that have been put together at the council level, we also have a very dynamic executive secretary who really has a certain passion to drive the industry in a particular direction. In the process, we've been able to change, the outlook completely with a certain level of support coming from the membership. And we expect that, going forward, it will look much better. And together, as an association, we'll be able to, move the industry much, higher than everybody expects.
Then the sector might be in the throes of a recovery, as you say, looking to build back on customer confidence. But what is the biggest danger that the industry faces? What should the industry be on the lookout for at this point in its growth?
I think it forms, part of what I said earlier on. The need for trust to be built up to a certain level. If this trust takes a long time, or the trust does not, come up within a certain short period, most likely you will find that the companies will struggle to be able to do the business that they expect. This industry and every single financial industry depends largely on liquidity. You depend on the fact that there are inflows that make it possible for you to, go through the process of doing business. Now, those inflows will come in only when people are confident and comfortable with what goes on in the industry. And that's why I keep saying that any situation that delays as far as this is concerned, most likely, can create problems, for the industry. I expect that we will not get to that level because there are programs that are being put in place, advocacy, and also to educate the people. Because I think for some of them, it is only because they don't have the full picture, they don't understand what is going on, and they take decisions based on some kind of fear that I don't think my money is safe. And then in the process, I don't want to do business in this particular sector. So we want to work on that. And all that we say is that most people are behaving rationally. And the rational way of doing things is to make sure that you have a certain level of control over your hard-earned investment and your hard-earned money. And to be able to do that, we have to continue to encourage all these people that this industry is stronger now, is stable, and we expect that people will change the way they operate as far as the industry is concerned.
And what will be the biggest positive that exists now also in the savings and loan sector?
The biggest positive is the fact that the central bank has gone through a certain process of cleaning the industry and indicating that these are the companies that have the ability, and we consider them to be the ones that can operate within the structure. So all that has been done leads to a certain point, and now there's a certain level of stability that has been achieved. And that's a big positive. So you should not have any doubts in your mind that the industry still has some cracks. The industry still has some companies that don't know the business and don't know what to do and do not have the ability to operate the way it's expected. There are also some attempts that are being made, like I said, through the process of educating people, which for me is a major, step in the right direction. People need to understand what the savings and loans company do. There are even situations, Godfred, let me put this as simply as possible, that people do not know the difference between the various financial institutions. We want to make sure that people understand clearly what the difference is. Sometimes some people put all of us in one basket. There are some people who even say that all of you are microfinance institutions. Or, they even say that we are all part of, what the Security and Exchange Commission has registered. All those things need to be ironed out clearly so that anybody who is talking about a savings and loans company, a finance house, or a microfinance, company, knows the difference and knows what each of them is expected to do, what they can do and what they cannot do. That will make a lot of difference. And I think that this whole process that we are going through will make those things very clear. And at the end of the day, the economy and Ghana as a whole will benefit.
All right, then. You're watching Face to Face with the CEO of Bond Savings and Loans, Mr. George Ofosuhene. We'll take a break, and when we return, we'll talk about credit risk management and technology. Welcome back to Face to Face. We are speaking to the CEO of Bond Savings and Loans, Mr. George Ofosuhene. And I promise you, before he's out of here, I'm going to ask him what I should look out for when I'm doing an investment. But I'll see if I should share that with you watching at home. But Mr. Ofosuhene, let's talk about credit risk management. And I've heard you speak passionately about this. Why should we be wary of this?
It's the bedrock of any financial institution that gets involved in credit, because you are as good as your ability to collect, whatever funds you have given out. And that can only happen if you have a form and structure that has the necessary ingredients to make it possible for you to collect. There's risk in everything. I remember, some time ago, I was talking to a friend. He had actually come to our office. I was asking for a facility. And we said, okay, we'll go ahead and do it. It's somebody I've known for quite some time. And then after we've done that, I asked him, so what are you going to give us as collateral after I've gone through the process of examining what we need to look at? Then he said, oh, George, you know me very well. I mean, this is not a problem. I mean, do you think I won't pay? I said, do you know something? You can actually go through the process of this. You get out of here. A vehicle knocks you down right in front of our building. And you know the process. Even if we have put the money in your account, the law does not allow us to immediately take it out. We have to go through a certain process. So there will have to be something that we need to do. The point I was making to him is that giving credit is not an easy thing. And you need to be very clear about the risks that you are taking. And also convince yourself that you have the mitigants. You can't do it 100%. But there must be mitigants in there that make it possible for you to convince yourself that this is the risk that I can take. We have, in some situations, rejected certain, requests. And you mentioned it, whilst we were talking, that we're not focusing so much on margins. Yes, margins are very important. Every company needs to survive on the basis of, because you're not philanthropic. So you need to make sure that you're making money for shareholders and other stakeholders. But if the transaction is not something that you can manage adequately, the best thing for you to do is to let the customer go to another place. And we have in some situations that, beyond a certain point, we can't handle this. So we package and then, send the customer ourselves to a bank and then let the bank, proceed from there. Because it's not a risk that we can take, maybe because of the long-term nature of whatever facility that is required. Credit risk is very, very important, and it needs to be handled the way it must be done. People who have the technical know-how must be the people that look at it, because it's all encompassing, and if you ignore any part of it, you are likely to have issues, and you don't want to do that.
And
you don't want to do that.
The financial sector in Ghana has also leveraged a lot on technology. I think if you look at the fintech space in Ghana, it's one of the most advanced on the continent, if I dare say. How are you, as your company, one that is leveraging heavily on technology? What are you doing in that space?
Okay. I'm happy that you bring it up, because we are one of the institutions that have this notion that technology is actually what is driving everything. We can't stop it. We can't reverse. We have to look at the best way to ride on that to make it possible for us to achieve what we want to achieve. So a long time ago, we took that decision. I always say that banking is no more where you go. Banking is what you do. So I don't have to go to the bank to go through the process of transacting business. From the comfort of my home, I should be able to transact business, using technology. So we have, over the period, been one of the advocates of going through the process of using technology. It has the advantage, Godfred, of making it possible for you to reach a lot of customers without physical presence. Because physical presence costs a lot of money. You have the discomfort of brick and mortar being part of what you are looking at. But technology makes a lot of difference. So all the various things that are available in the market, we are part of what is going on. With mobile money and anything that runs on technology, we are part of the process of getting it done. We feel that every customer must think more about his or her business. And the relationship between the customer and bond must be such that it doesn't consume so much space. It doesn't consume so much time. The only way to do that is to make sure that technology makes a lot of difference. So you can sit in the comfort of your office. You have internet banking facility that makes it possible for you to view your account anywhere, anytime. And now we even have it on your mobile phone. That you can, go through the process of checking it. You can do transfers. You can move money from your account to another account, move money from your account to, another company, once you have the necessary details. These are things that we have developed, to make sure that the comfort of the customer is always paramount. We think about how can I make the customer more comfortable? And that is what we have been focusing on over the period.
Okay. Yeah. You operate in a space also that has a lot of Ghanaian companies that have all come along, unlike the bigger banks where we have a significant foreign presence as well. What have you made of the Ghanaian growth spurt in that industry? Is it going the way you expect it to go?
There's more that can be done. But I think that it hasn't been, too bad at all as far as, the businesses that are Ghanaian owned, operating in the country. A lot of these companies, are owner managed. Okay? The person who started the business is the same person who does everything relating to the business. But quite a number of these people are very smart. I always say that we have quite a number of very, very smart business people in this country, and they already have the ability to push beyond, the walls as far as, their own, structures are concerned. And it continues to be. We have had the benefit of, like I said earlier on, some companies that we have operated with right from day one in 2008, and they still do business with that. And if you consider how well they have operated and how much they have grown is quite refreshing. And I think that there's still a lot that can be done, by the Ghanaian.
You think that we are helping each other enough as businesses, as business leaders?
As for that, I think that there's a bit more that we can do. I think that Ghanaians are not very good at helping each other. We most of the time try to do things on our own. Godfred, I'll tell you one thing. It's not very easy for you to find so many Ghanaian-owned partnerships or Ghanaian-owned companies that come together as a conglomerate, put together 3-4 institutions. Those things hardly happen. But it is one of the ways of companies being able to acquire a certain level of critical mass to be able to operate in a certain way. We don't do too much of that here, and I think that is one of the things that all of us must consider to look at how these things can be developed. It comes with all kinds of issues that need to be considered, but if you know what happens on the international scene, usually synergies that create bigger institutions are the best form of growth, within a certain period. But we don't do too much of that. We don't help each other enough, as far as that is concerned. And I wish that we could, start moving in that direction.
Yeah, well, we hope that is advice that is well taken. But also, we have a lot of Ghanaians who have, over the past maybe decade or so, generated a significant interest in investments. People want to invest their money, but they say they don't know what to do with it. And then there are those who are also looking for investment and can't seem to find anybody to put money in their businesses. Ghanaian businesses seem to prefer a certain kind of, business. So we don't have a lot of startups who are able to generate, investments. What do you look out for? What should I look out for if I'm an investor? And what should I look out for if I want somebody to invest in me? If you could share a few pointers.
Okay. I think in a situation like that, the first thing that we need to look at is what kind of industry are we talking about? Okay, because we need to be very clear on what the details in that particular industry, are. And then whoever we are investing in, we need to understand why. Start with the why, like Simon Sinek would say. You need to understand why you are doing what you want to do. There are some situations where you find that quite a number of people are swayed by the fact that one person or the other is doing well in a particular industry, and they follow through. They get into the system. And then they realize that there are certain issues that are not, available to you, where you would have started the process already. Investment is something that requires a lot of critical thinking and analysis.
Okay.
Because you don't want a situation where you have too many investment failures. So before you do anything, you need to be very clear on what you are doing and how the investment can grow. I don't think anybody gets into investment and the person doesn't care whether the investment yields any returns or the investment goes down the drain. But sometimes we do not take the trouble to go through the process of analyzing things very well and being able to make the right judgments. What I say is that there are people and there are companies, there are institutions that have the ability to provide technical support. But sometimes the issue becomes whether we know that such companies exist and are able to go through the process of giving you data, information, interpretation that makes it possible for you to make an informed decision. So we do it ourselves. But once you are not capable, you may not have the ability to see what you must see. So let's think about how we can do that. Let's think about how we can use the services of experts in the process of dealing with that. As an entrepreneur, if somebody approaches you and says that, I am doing this business and I want you to, invest in the business, you may not have the ability to actually go through the process of examining and analyzing. But there are institutions that do that, and they will give you all the information that is required so that your investment will be done the right way, in the right terms and conditions, and also be able to get the right kind of return that you expect. I think that over the period, we haven't done badly, as far as investments are concerned, from the point of people having the rationale and also people having the discipline to invest. And I've seen it over the period that we are growing as a nation as far as investments are concerned. And people now look at what kind of investments they can come up with so that their monies can grow. Because the whole point is that when you have money, the money must grow. The money cannot be left idle. And if the money is left idle, you are losing the money. You are actually not keeping the value. You are losing value.
Wow.
And time value of money. 1 cedi today is not the same as 1 cedi tomorrow. So if you don't put in the right investment, what will happen is that you will lose value.
And that seems to be the problem. The right investment.
The right investment.
I have, for the past couple of weeks, I've been reading a lot of stories about the Ghana Stock Exchange. And you played a role somewhere.
Yeah. I was part of the initial, process of getting the stock exchange. I was one of the first brokers on the stock exchange.
What do you make of that as part of the investment conversation? Are we making enough use of that?
I don't think we're making enough use of that. And I think part of the problem is the education. You may or may not be aware, but for instance, bond has a corporate bond that is being traded on the secondary market, the Ghana fixed income market. This is an opportunity that is available, and a lot of companies can use that to raise money to be able to do the kind of thing that they want to do. But it goes through a process. The process is quite daunting, and you have to make sure that you are organized well to be able to do that. But the facilities that are provided by the stock exchange make it possible for people to raise money, and also make it possible for people to invest monies and be able to generate the right kind of returns. Okay. But I insist that to do that, get experts to help in the process of determining what you must do and what you must not do. Because Godfred, when it comes to investment, one of the questions you must ask yourself is that, what are you looking for? Long-term, short-term, medium-term, fixed income, or what? All those things must be part of what you agree with yourself before you start the process. And then once you do that, then you get an expert to now advise you that these are the various instruments that are available. This is what you can do. And this is what I think you should be looking at. And then the process takes off from there. Instead of we trying to do it ourselves. If you are knowledgeable and you have the technical capability, of course, you should be able to do it yourself. But even there, you may not have the time to analyze things properly. Quite a number of people have made a lot of money on the stock exchange, buying stocks and selling stocks. And this is something that...
Really?
Oh, yes. Godfrey, take it from me.
In this country?
In this country, yes. I have benefited from it myself, quite significantly. But you need to understand what you want to do. You need to know which stocks to buy, when to sell, and whether you want to actually keep the stocks and just maintain the fact that you want to be a shareholder. Sometimes there are initial public offers that are done, and sometimes you find that people are just driven towards it only because they have heard adverse about it. Okay? If you take your time, analyze, and go through the process of engaging, and I will continue to emphasize that, the services of the right kind of advisor, you know what to do.
Okay.
There's a lot that the stock exchange offers.
All right, interesting. Yeah. So it looks like that is something that we might also have to look at. Thank you. Sound advice coming from the CEO of Bond Savings and Loans. Let's put the finance and everything aside, though, and talk a bit about yourself and some of the things that you like to do. I want to get to know you a bit better. So,
okay, all right.
Your father was an educationist.
Yes. My father was an educationist. My mother too was an educationist.
Oh,
yes.
Must have been a hard childhood.
Yeah, not so hard because there were no, I'll say, strict rules, to operate in. Okay. You knew what to do and what not to do. And once you stayed within those parameters, there wasn't any problem. I mean, I always tell my people that at a certain point, my dad was a priest, Presbyterian priest. He never forced anybody to go to church, because he always felt that the process of dealing with that should be an individual decision. But he will appeal to your conscience that it is good for you to go to church because you can learn something that will help you in the process of your development as a human being. But there wasn't anything like everybody wake up and get to church. No. But of course, in the process, we all became part of it. In my case, sometimes you will tell me that I'm going to preach here. I want you to drive me. And then when I'm preaching, sit there and listen to me. And, you know, I went through the process. Sometimes I used to tell people that some of his sermons, I could, when he starts, I know what he's talking about.
What is coming
But
up.
I listened to it so many times. but Godfred, talking about it, I think, you know, childhood was quite interesting. We are quite many of a Ghanaian, you know, family. There's 7 of us.
Wow.
You know, so right from the word go, you have the benefit of communal living, that you are each other's keeper, you protect each other, you know how to share, you know how to accommodate, you know, other people. And I think those are some of the things that have helped me over the period. And you develop a relationship. We still, all of us are still around. We have a fantastic relationship, and, you know, it's helped a lot.
And it's interesting that the son of a Presbyterian priest ended up in 2 Catholic schools. You did St. Peter's, and they did St. Thomas Aquinas. I was going to ask whether you were Catholic, but then you already addressed that by telling me your dad was a Presbyterian priest. But how were those experiences for you? How did you end up St. Peter's and then St. Thomas Aquinas?
It was actually something that my dad designed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he insisted. He insisted that, you know, he wanted, you know, his children to attend, you know, Catholic schools. And it was a good experience anyway. But those days, his focus was on the quality of education. And because he was in that role, he knew exactly what went on where. Okay. And that is why, you know, it was like that. Plus the fact that St. Peter's was actually in our hometown.
Okay.
And he felt that it was important for, you know, somebody like me to make sure that I'm closer to my roots. But, you know, those days at St. Peter's, I always say that, you know, some of the very interesting days. And quite a number of the values that I still hold were picked up, you know, from the school. You know, from those days. Yeah. We really cherish, you know, what the school has made of us.
And how did you end up at Thomas Aquinas?
It was 6th form.
Okay.
That, you know, I mean, it was a bit of a rebellion, let me put it that way. Because
you don't look the rebellious kind.
I actually wanted to, you know, experience, you know, something outside of the, so to speak, you know, the village. And, you know, as usual, Dad said, okay, then it will have to be a Catholic school. So I said, yeah, any Catholic school, that is, you know. And he also had a certain relationship. So he said, okay, let me talk to this friend of mine. And then, you know, I ended up there. Those were also very interesting times for me.
All right.
And I got to know quite a bit of Accra.
We'll take our final break on Face to Face. When we return, we'll continue our conversation on the light things that Mr. Ofosuhene likes to do. Welcome back to Face with Mr. George Ofosuhene, the CEO of Bond Savings and Loans. And you've spoken a bit about school and the influence of your father.
Yeah.
But you haven't spoken to us about how you ended up being a numbers man, a banker. And it wasn't about numbers. You wanted to look good.
Yeah.
It was just looking good. That is our motivation for going into banking. That is like the most different reason I've ever heard. How did this come? You have to tell me this story.
I always talk about it that I didn't get into banking because of, you know, because of banking. I just like the way bankers dress. And I remember I had this friend who, you know, was working with commercial bank those days. Mm-hmm. So sometimes I would go and visit him, just sit, you know, in the banking hall. He would see me and say, oh, George, I'll see you soon. So I just sit there and I just admire the way the people were going up and down. Everybody seemed to be in a very serious mood, you know, doing something. This is a serious business. You don't hear too much chattering and, you know, things like that. So I found the environment very interesting. And then everybody was very well dressed. I said, this is what I want to do. Because, you know, the business of banking puts a certain cloak on you. You have to look a certain way. Yeah. And that is what I liked. And that is what pushed me into banking. So sometimes I'll just go and sit there. Then I'll just tell him that, oh, I'm off, I'll see you later. But it was just, you know, being in that environment and enjoying the ambience of well-dressed people going up and down the business and dealing with customer issues. That was the initial move. But when I got into it, I realized that, you know, it was far more interesting than I expected. And I've never regretted.
You haven't looked back?
No,
you gave up the dreams of becoming a medical doctor?
Yes. Long ago. Quickly. I mean, I just, you know, kept telling myself that maybe it was God's design, because I've enjoyed my, you know, my stint within the banking system so much that I still tell people that at this level, I still learn a lot every single day. And I've been in it for over 30 years. In actual fact, I think if I didn't like it, I may have moved into another sector, but I still continue to.
Which sector would that have been?
I haven't thought about it, honestly. I don't know.
I read an interview you granted about 6 years ago, where you said the secret to success is not hard work alone.
No.
What else comes?
There are a lot of things that come to play. The way you compose and structure yourself makes a lot of difference. Attitude counts a lot, if you're looking at success. And success is an everyday thing. There isn't anything like, I have become successful. Once you understand that this is a journey and you continue looking at it, you have the ability to continue to progress. Hard work, of course, I'm not underrating it, I'm not belittling it, but I think there's a lot more that has to do with success than just hard work. You need to have the right kind of social links, even in the process of coming up, because that plays a very important role as far as success is concerned. You will learn. You have to learn. You want to be successful, you have to learn. You learn two ways. You are either connected to the right people who have the ability to challenge you and also have the ability to continue to give information to you that you need. Or you go through the process of reading as much as you can so that you can expand your capability. Of course, if you're working hard, it's good. But is it not better to always look at how you can work better? That every day you look at how you can improve on what you are doing so that you can become more efficient. Excellence is the name of the game.
You work in a high pressure job sometimes.
Yeah.
So how does George Ofosuhene let loose? Does he play football? Does he watch football? Does he ride horses? Does he read for pleasure? What do you do?
A lot of things in one. A lot of things in one. One is the fact that, I call myself an exercise fanatic. I like to exercise. I used to play squash, quite, strenuously, but these days, age and some medical issues relating to my limbs, moving me away from that. But when I'm not, at work, I'm not home, I'm either walking. I play golf too. All these are, ways of ensuring that, you can have a sound body, because I still believe in that adage, that it's a sound mind in a sound body. So I do that a lot. Yeah.
And in wrapping up finally, I must ask, what is the long-term vision? 10 years, 20 years from now, when you sit down in your rocking chair and you look at bond savings and loans, what do you want people to say?
I want people to say that this is a company that has affected so many lives in so many ways. And that is what we are pushing for, making sure that we make a certain difference in the way people are able to do the business that they do. We have, over the period, talked about the fact that we always want to add value. Once we get into a relationship with any institution, we want to make sure that we are adding value. And that is what we're looking at, to be able to continuously be considered as one of the primary sources of support, for companies that are looking to do serious business in this country. And we think that we will be able to achieve that. On a personal level, what I'd like to see is a continuous situation of the people that have been influenced to be able to do things that they never expected to do, to continue to grow and take over the mantle of developing this particular industry. And I think that that seriously can be achieved without any problem at all.
Thank you very much, Mr. George Ofosuhene.
Thank you.
CEO of Bond Savings and Loans, our guest on Face to Face. I hope you've learned a lot about where to place your money and about the success story and the still growing success story, I must say, of Bond Savings and Loans. My name is Godfred Akoto Boafo. Have a good day.